Part 80. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 798. Sutingyu took out her mobile phone and poked the screen a few times. Hello, nurse sister? Someone here fainted on the street. Well, yes, the address is, okay. After briefly explaining the situation, Sutingyu hung up the phone. At this time, Sutingyu turned around, turned his back to the front of the car, and said to Gucci inside the car, "Drive the car farther away first, this person will move out of the road, and we can leave." In the eyes of ordinary players, this is just an NPC in the dungeon, not a real person, and his life is not worth mentioning. However, because Sutingyu has experienced a dungeon in the real world and knows that the NPCs in it are real people, for the current high-star event dungeon, before he is completely sure that this is not the real world, for the NPCs he encounters, that is, let's treat it like a real person. Someone crossed the road in the middle of the night and fainted. Under normal circumstances, normal people cannot ignore it when they see it. In the car, Gucci was just about to start the car when he looked up and saw a figure standing up on the front glass of the car. Gucci's pupils shrank. The person who fainted woke up. Gucci watched the man turn his head and neck stiffly and slowly. Under his full head of black hair, his eyes were shining red and were no longer normal. Sutingyu. The man rushed towards the nearest Sutingyu, who was not in the car and had his back turned. Sutingyu didn't look back, but felt the trembling sensation behind him. While turning sideways to avoid it, he twisted his waist and swept his right leg out. Bang! Yeah! What a coincidence, Sutingyu's kick hit the man's most vulnerable abdomen. The face hidden under the hair instantly turned ferocious and livid, and his hand subconsciously covered the pain due to the pain, trembling, and fell limply to the ground. This is a man. When the man revealed most of his face, Sutingyu was shocked. For a moment, Sutingyu suspected that she was not in a copy of the modern worldview. How is it possible for a modern man to have long, knee-length, lush hair under normal circumstances? There are even very few women. Without giving the three of them much time to react, the long-haired man who fell on the ground stood up straight again, as if the solace of his feet had taken root, driving his entire body to stand upright in front of the three of them again. The long-haired man with dementia rushed towards Sutingyu, seemingly targeting the latter and refusing to stop. Wei Chu quickly reminded, "Sister Su. Be careful. He's coming at you again." I saw a girl with long hair and a calm face, and suddenly a strange stick that kept enlarging and lengthening appeared in her hand. Before the former could get close, he was stabbed far away by the stick. Wei Chu blinked slowly and closed his slightly open mouth. When Wei Chu looked at Sutingyu again, his eyes were a little more cautious. Not just in the car or in the store, when the two met for the first time, Wei Chu's keen intuition was vaguely releasing a message. This girl who looks younger than me is very dangerous. Wei Chu has always believed in his intuition. With his intuition, he avoided many venomous snakes and pests when he went into the mountains to get into trouble as a child. This is not some metaphysics, but more like his innate talent for smell. So, after the thief's misunderstanding was explained clearly, Wei Chu recognized his sister obediently and honestly without any hesitation. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Because he was originally the youngest, a country boy, a minor who was 17 years old, this was not a shame. Therefore, when I saw this scene, I was surprised, but also a little expected. Well, she is indeed Sister Su, his sister who was 17 years late. Sutingyu was carrying the falling stick, but she didn't know that her cheap brother had taken it upon himself to recognize her as her biological sister. She glanced at the long-haired man who was knocked away by her, silently assessed the distance, and thought to herself. He nodded affirmatively. Yes, there is progress. This time he did not miss too far. The meteor rod grew longer inch by inch, and when it reached the distance where it could poke the long-haired man, Sotingyu poked the long-haired man in the head without hesitation. "Hey, are you still angry? Can you still get up? How about we be nice? Let's talk about it?" Sotingyu tilted her head and muttered in confusion, "Why is there no response? She didn't use much force." Titty at this time, from far to near, the sound of an ambulance sounded behind the three people. Sotingyu turned around and saw an ambulance driving towards them. After the ambulance stopped, several doctors and nurses quickly ran out of it. Two of the doctors carried a stretcher. They were very efficient and immediately carried away the unconscious long-haired man on the ground without asking. "Hey, sister nurse, that person." Sotingyu stopped a younger nurse, and was about to say something about the abnormal condition of the long-haired man, but the latter interrupted her. "You called the ambulance, you did a good job." After saying that, the little nurse left in a hurry with her colleagues. Titty the voice sounded, and the ambulance gradually moved away. It's strange. Gucci stared at the direction the ambulance was leaving. It's not like these doctors have encountered this kind of patient for the first time. Sotingyu nodded. "Yes, I left in a hurry." Was it to save people? Or did he not want her to come into contact with him more? "Would you like to follow?" Wei Chu asked. Gucci shook his head. "We have just called the ambulance, so it would not be very wise to follow them now. Moreover, we are still in battle mode, so we should focus on collecting treasures first." Sotingyu had no objection. She was just very curious. This long-haired man, what on earth is this? "We can go to the hospital to have a look when we have time. If this kind of patient is not an exception, then go to the hospital. We will definitely meet him again. We'll go to the hospital tomorrow. Now get in the car and leave here." Gucci looked at the time and saw that they had been delayed for 30 or 40 minutes because of this weird long-haired man. "Okay." After the two got in the car, Gucci started the car and left the place. This time on the road, the three of them carefully paid attention to whether there would be another strange person running out on both sides of the road. But this time, the journey until the destination was uneventful. After getting off the car, Gucci looked at Sotingyu and said, "I remember you brought a lot of private goods in. You exchanged them first for money and then for treasures." Sotingyu looked innocent. "Is there somewhere to change?" "I just checked, there is a gold store opposite." Gucci pointed to a shop. "Guju, you have no money?" Sotingyu asked curiously. "Shouldn't this be true?" Gucci looked calm. "No, I'm just afraid it's not enough." "Okay, I'll change it, and you go pick it up first." Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 799. "Ah, you picked something up." Wei Chu watched Sotingyu jump away and couldn't figure out what the two of them wanted to do. Gucci glanced back at him and explained briefly, "The treasures mentioned in this round of dungeons are historical relics in the dungeon, and places like antique shops can be found everywhere." "That's it?" Wei Chu thought of the two pieces of porcelain he put in the car. It was a coincidence that he found these two treasures. It was because the porcelain shop mistakenly mistook the two historical relics for ordinary modern porcelain. "Sold in the store." Gucci handed over a bank card to Wei Chu. "When the player comes into contact with the treasures, there will be a prompt on the panel. Use the money in the card to buy all the treasures you found. We will split up." "Okay, boss." Wei Chu looked at the wealthy boss in front of him, and then remembered the painful expression on his face because he bought those two pieces of porcelain, and he didn't know what to say. Just as Gucci was about to leave, he seemed to remember something and said again, "You can put all the treasures in the inventory. If there are too many to carry, just find a place where no one is and put them away." "I remember, boss." Wei Chu suddenly realized that no wonder Sister Su said that she also had treasures, but he never saw any trace of the treasures in the car. It turned out that they were all stored in the inventory. In fact, Most veteran players know the hidden rules of how some special items in the dungeon can be put into the inventory, but not everyone just wants to put them away when they see the same thing. Wei Chu is not a newbie. Even if he didn't bother to remind him, he should realize it after a while. The two of them started to work separately. They did not go into a specialty antique shop, but went to some stalls to pick up missing items. When Sutingyu came back after withdrawing the money, the two of them had also harvested more than a dozen treasures. Picking up leaks on the street is cheap and affordable, but the chance of encountering the genuine article will be greatly reduced. After Sutingyu came over, he also joined the large team of sweeping goods. 1, 2, 3. Sutingyu was in a good mood as he counted the increasing treasures in his mind. What is a fight? Sutingyu had long forgotten. But Sutingyu didn't expect that. He didn't want to ask for a fight, but fate came and he couldn't stop it. At that time, Sutingyu found another treasure at a stall. Just as he raised his head to negotiate the price with the stall owner, a not-so-kind voice intervened. "Boss, I want that thing in her hand, 500 yuan. Sutingyu looked around and saw a man looking at her arrogantly. Sutingyu narrowed her eyes slightly. Although the man seemed to be looking at her, his eyes glanced at the panel next to her somewhat unconsciously. The NPC cannot see its own panel, which means, is this person a player? Sutingyu's panel popped up because a treasure was detected, which happened to reveal her identity as a player. Sutingyu didn't pay attention to him first, but turned to look at the stall owner. "Boss, I was the first to like this piece of jade. How much does it cost?" At this time, when the stall owner saw someone competing for his jade, he rolled his eyes slightly and smiled like a Philistine. "Little girl, you didn't ask for the price first, and this young man came, and I, too. It's hard to say." Tisk. Is this because the two of them will compete to raise prices and reap the benefits? It's a pity that there are restrictions on who can belong to it. Otherwise, Sutingyu could just dump the money and leave. If you want to really get this piece of jade, you have to really agree with the stall owner. "Hey, little girl, this jade is mine, get out of here." Sutingyu took a few steps back and kept the distance between the two of them within 2 meters, not wanting the other party to find out his game nickname. After all, although Sutingyu was careless, he still managed to stay on top of things at the critical moment and even knew that he was a wanted person. This round of dungeons did not say that players are not allowed to kill each other, but this male player is openly provoking, and he should have some confidence. Now in front of everyone, Sutingyu's identity is exposed, and it is difficult to do anything. If the other party runs away, well, ran away, just ran away, it was just a little troublesome. Sutingyu glanced at him, but still ignored him, and said to the stall owner, "Boss, please make a price." "But if I make a bid, who will buy it between you two? I am a kind person, but I am not good." The stall owner looked helpless. It was obvious that his idea of sitting on the sidelines would not change. "Raise the price." Tisk. If the fight lasts longer and the stall owner realizes that it is a treasure and refuses to sell it, it will be even more troublesome. "Stop wasting my time, or let's just follow the rules." The male player looked at Sutingyu, who had thin arms and legs. Even if he had game props, he would definitely not be able to beat him, so he just started talking wildly and wanted to use it. "Solve it in the battle mode of the copy." "Okay, but this piece of jade doesn't belong to you yet." "I need to add another piece." Sutingyu's eyes were blazing. Since she was rushing to deliver the treasure, she wouldn't be polite. "Okay," the male player smiled. In his eyes, Sutingyu was also rushing to give away treasures. Would he be afraid of a mere little girl? Afraid. After the two reached an agreement, both their panels popped up at the same time. It has been detected that a player has reached a fight intention after peaceful and friendly negotiations. Challenge between the two sides, Angel Survi's great cleverness. The battle competition format will be drawn immediately. The draw is completed. The name of this date competition is, Find the Duck. Contest rules and content: find 10 ducks in the flashy street. There is no time limit. The first person to find them is the winner. The winner can claim any treasure from the loser. Sutinyu blinked his big eyes, immediately handed the piece of jade back to the stall owner, and then ran away with a whoosh. The male player realized this later, looked shocked and angry, and ran away immediately. The stall owner at the scene looked at the tattered jade in his hand, feeling a little confused. Didn't you agree to buy jade? Compete for price? The one with the highest price gets it. Why did everyone run away? The stall owner was very depressed. I thought I met two fools. After that, he carefully considered the jade in his hand, but looking left and right, he couldn't see anything precious about it. Moreover, this was the imported batch of parallel imports, can't be real treasures, right? Thinking of this, the stall owner put the jade back on the stall. Duck, 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 where is my little duck? Sutinyu ran away in a hurry, but encountered a problem on the way. It was late at night and she was still in the antique street. Where could she find 10 quacking ducks? I wonder if there are any mascots or pets raised by the store. It happens to be Quack Aqua again. Sutinyu slowed down and glanced around randomly. This fight is equivalent to betting on 2 treasures. If she loses, she will have no choice but to cry, to kill, and, to cry, for goods. The only thing that can comfort her is that she is hard to find, and the male player is also hard to find. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 800. Just when Sutinyu didn't know how to find Quacka, he glanced out of the corner of his eye and saw a yellow hydrogen balloon floating in the air, with a cartoon yellow duck drawn on the surface of the balloon. Opposite the antique street is a children's amusement city, which contains a variety of children's entertainment facilities and items. It is normal for a hydrogen balloon to float accidentally. Sutinyu looked at the cartoon duck on the balloon and thought, it would be great if this was a real duck. What is needed in the duel competition is to find ducks, to find ducks, to find ducks. Suddenly, Sutinyu's head suddenly trembled. Wait a minute. In this competition, it seems that it only talks about finding ducks, but not about finding real ducks or fake ducks, right? Sutinyu looked at the duck hydrogen balloon again, with a burning look of excitement. You have to verify it. Sutinyu ran towards the hydrogen balloon in mid-air, but the hydrogen balloon was blown back and forth by the night wind. It remained as high as 2 or 3 floors, and Sutinyu couldn't reach it. You can't use props either. At this distance, Sutinyu could use a meteor stick to hook down the balloon, but even though it was a night market, there were still many pedestrians on the street. Sutinyu stared at the balloon in mid-air and muttered, what should we do? If you can't touch the balloon, the panel won't give any prompts. Is it possible to give up? Looking for another item with duck elements to touch? Just when Sutinyu was about to give up, a gust of night wind blew by, blowing the hydrogen balloon to the green trees on the roadside. The tall and lush branches and leaves blocked the balloon from floating around. Huh? What a great opportunity! Sutinyu's eyes lit up and he immediately ran over to climb the tree. Pedestrians on the roadside also looked sideways when they saw such a weird little girl like Sutinyu. What is this little girl doing? Good guy, climbing a tree? I've stopped playing this game a long time ago. Whose child? Looks like he's in middle school or high school, and he's still so naughty. Sutinyu blocked out the sounds from the outside world and concentrated on climbing the tree. With both feet firmly on the forks of the big tree, my little hands pulled the tree body and climbed up little by little. Huh? Why did it churn? It seems like you stepped on something. Sutinyu was suddenly surprised. Just now, the soles of her feet seemed to have stepped on some raised area, which made her a little uncomfortable. But before she came up, she clearly saw that the footing was flat and free of foreign objects. Moreover, the moment she stepped on it, she subconsciously stepped on it a little harder because of the discomfort, and seemed to hear some sour squeaking sounds. When she let go of her legs, it seemed like there was nothing there. Now halfway through the climb, Sutinyu couldn't help but look down, so he suppressed his doubts and continued climbing. There are already 3 or 4-story green trees with lush branches and leaves, which are somewhat blocking the telephone poles and street lights on the roadside. There is a dark shadow inside and under the trees. It's so strong, it's time to prune it while crawling, Sutinyu couldn't help but murmured quietly. This is a typical example of someone who has the foresight to tear down the bridge before it has been crossed, which is not kind at all. She didn't know if it was an illusion of climbing too high, but Sutinyu felt that the tree she was clinging to shook a few times. And when Sutinyu stopped to feel it carefully, there was nothing there and he was completely calm. It must be the wind. Sutinyu thought. The balloon tangled in branches and leaves was not motionless. At least, every time the wind blew, it moved playfully, making Sutinyu's heart beat faster, fearing that it would be blown away in the next second. Fortunately, in the end, as expected, Sutinyu grabbed the balloon's traction line and pulled it out. Sutinyu breathed a sigh of relief, and then moved down carefully. This little girl just wants to catch a balloon. The nature of a child. Sutinyu was able to concentrate on listening to those remarks at the moment, and he didn't feel embarrassed when he heard something about children. What's wrong with the little fairy who looks young, lively, and cute? After Sutinyu landed, she couldn't wait to hug the balloon with both hands. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for finding a little duck, the game progress is 1/10, please keep up the good work. The panel really popped up, and Sutinyu was overjoyed. Her judgment was correct. As expected of you, you. It's really you. After finding the first little duck, Sutinyu felt very depressed. She didn't know if the duck she found could be thrown away again, so Sutinyu tied the end of the traction rope around her wrist to ensure that the little duck that only reaches the mouth will not fly away. It would be great if 9 more little ducks flew out. Sutinyu looked at the children's amusement park opposite, looking forward to it in her heart, but she also knew that it was a rare thing to happen to see balloons flying out, but once it's important not to place all your expectations here. So, Sutinyu geared up and started looking for the remaining ducklings full of fighting spirit. By the way, there are so many antiques. I wonder if any of them are engraved with ducks. Sutinyu looked at the dazzling array of antiques that were not authentic or fake, and another idea came to her mind. Since the location specified on the panel is on this antique street, the way to break the situation must be found here. With his goal in mind, Sutinyu began to wander around every stall. When he met a stall owner, he asked if he had any antiques engraved with duck patterns. After searching, Sutinyu really found him. It was a cyan vase half as high as Sutinyu's arm, with a picture of an idyllic scene painted on it. A group of ducks were being raised in a farmer's yard. Sutinyu counted them carefully, and there were exactly 9 quacks. Hard work pays off. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for finding 9 little ducks, the game progress is 10/10. The Find the Duck competition is over, the winner is Angel Su. Players on both sides please abide by the rules of the competition. The loser should give a treasure to the winner for free within 5 minutes. The winner should wait patiently for 5 minutes and pay attention to the inventory. Oh haha, I win. Sutinyu felt refreshed and returned to the stall where the dispute originally occurred. He found the stall owner and said, "Boss, I have discussed it with that person and this jade is mine, this is 500 yuan. The jade that Sutinyu had longed for was in his hands again, and he took out his bank card without hesitation. The stall owner was still confused. Ah, really? That young man isn't coming back, The stall owner couldn't help but stretched his head to look at the flow of people coming and going. Although the two of them ran away at the same time, they looked like they were leaving. The discussion was the same, but it was still a little strange. He suspected that this little girl was tricking him, but there was no evidence. Sutingyu coughed dryly and felt a little guilty. Of course. If he loses to me, he will definitely not dare to come. After all, the rules of the battle did not specifically stipulate that the winner could get the jade, so Sutingyu naturally made the decision quickly while no one was coming. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 801. Sutingyu felt proud in her heart. She is really a smart and clever little fairy duck. Okay. The stall owner reluctantly agreed. After all, it was just a piece of broken jade, and he made a profit if he could sell it for 500 yuan. After Sutingyu swiped the card, he took the jade and left. Player Angel Su, please note that your battle victory prize has arrived, please pay attention to check it. Hey, it seems that there are restrictions on the rules of the battle. The losing player can only obey the rules. After Sutingyu took a look, he ignored it and continued to pick up the missing items at other stalls. At this time, hateful. The male player who was forced to hand over a treasure looked angry. How on earth did that little girl find 10 ducks? Angel Su, Angel Su. The male player muttered this name, but slowly, he felt as if he had heard this game nickname somewhere. Wait a minute, Angel Su, it seems he is the wanted one. The male player's eyes instantly shone. If I can kill that little girl, wouldn't there be a huge bounty? Oops. That piece of jade. When the male player arrived at the original stall again, he was so angry that he learned that the jade had been taken away. So, he asked the stall owner the direction Sutingyu left and chased after him. That's almost it? Sutingyu found a few more treasures, and now his hands were a little unable to hold them. Although this street is long, Sutingyu and the three of them had almost finished picking up the goods after they separated to scan the goods. After the three people met again, they discussed finding a place to pick up the missing items. After getting in the car, Sutingyu put all the treasures he got into the storage ring. Sutingyu, collect it for me. Gucci took out his new treasure. Oh, Sutingyu waved his hand and put the storage ring away. Seeing this scene, Wei Chu was a little puzzled. Boss, don't you have an inventory? Why is it all kept by Sister Su? The exposure time of the treasure is about to be refreshed. If you put it in the inventory, the map can detect it, and she has a prop that can cover up the detection, Gucci explained. That's right, Sutingyu smiled and said, Xiaozu, if you can trust me, I can keep it for you and give it to you when the copy is about to end. Anyway, the owner remains the same, so it's still yours. The owner, by the way, boss, this is the treasure I got in exchange for the money you gave me. Wei Chu also took out all the treasures, including his original two, and then said to Sutingyu, I'm sorry to trouble Sister Su. Gucci watched the group of owners in the car change from your uncle or your uncle to he. He lowered his eyes slightly and pushed 5 of the 15 items to Wei Chu, salary. Wei Chu was flattered, thank you, boss. Gucci, you can take 1/3 of the treasures you trade later. Finally, these treasures were collected by Sutingyu. By the way, I just played the date mode. Sutingyu felt it was necessary to mention this to the two of them. Gucci, who was driving to the next place to pick up the leak, heard this, and his voice was a little more curious. How do you feel? What is it specifically? Although the three of them have unanimously decided not to go for a fight, they will definitely not be able to avoid it later. Sutingyu explained the whole process of the battle mode in detail. That's it? Thanks to my cleverness, wisdom, courage, foresight, and victory over thousands of miles, I got one more treasure. Sutingyu shook his head and showed off himself. Wei Chu immediately cheered, Sister Su is so powerful. Gucci decisively ignored Sotingyu's last nonsense and only thought about the main topic at the beginning. Those players who have obtained the treasures should also know that the treasures are historical relics. Please be careful when you go to the next antique street, Gucci said. Okay, boss, Wei Chu agreed honestly. Sotingyu said, hurt, I feel okay. Even if I encounter it, it's a buy one get one free thing. Oh, that's because you are lucky, Gucci said without hesitation, it means you met a fool. If he is cruel, no matter what the date mode, he will just grab it. Yes, Sotingyu glanced at Wei Chu, who was thoughtfully beside him, and immediately nodded in agreement. She also cheered, but Gucci was unlikely to be led astray by her anyway, but Wei Chu, who was young and a boy, would be in trouble if she started to look down upon her because of her joking remarks. The battle mode is actually the protection of the weak and the restraint of the strong. Sotingyu stopped smiling and pointed out directly, in the dungeon rules, it does not say that players cannot kill people and steal goods, but the existence of the battle mode, and its competition rules and content are random, which is conducive to maximizing fairness, so that the competitive strength between players will not be too disparate. In addition, after the winner and loser are decided, the loser does not have to give the treasure in person, but through the panel system. In this case, the winner who gets the treasure can take advantage of this opportunity and run away if he doesn't want to cause any more trouble. Sotingyu was the only player among the three who had participated in the duel competition. Naturally, he had the greatest say, so he expressed his feelings and thoughts one by one. There is still an hour before the next refresh point. Try not to bump into other players. If you have time to go to a battle, you don't know how many treasures you can buy back, Gucci said. The enemy. Go, go, go. Copy time, 3 o'clock. The second battle is refreshed, and the map display time is extended to 5 minutes. Sotingyu and the others put all their treasures into storage rings in advance. This time, there was no trace of them on the map. After working for a long time, the three of them decided to go back to the meeting point to rest. After all, there may be new check-in tasks during the day. Copy time, 6 o'clock. The battle mode temporarily closed the map function, and the disputes between players seemed to have suddenly returned to calm. Copy time, 7:40. Sotingyu was woken up by the alarm clock, she said. Just when she subconsciously wanted to lie down in bed, she suddenly remembered that Gucci had found Qin-Chi last night. In other words, she didn't see anyone when she came back last night, so it was definitely daytime now. I can see you. Sotingyu suddenly woke up. A carp rolled around, and Sotingyu jumped out of bed. After spending 5 minutes washing and dressing, Sotingyu slipped out of his residence and ran to find Gucci. After Sotingyu ran out, she saw Gucci eating breakfast in the public activity area, and the people next to him were Qin-Chi and Fatty. Kikai. Fatty, Sotingyu ran over. Good morning, boss. When Qin-Chi saw someone coming, he stood up to greet him. Kikai. Fatty, how were you yesterday? Sotingyu looked at the two of them with big eyes, looking at Qin-Chi for any new injuries. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Kei. Chapter 802. Yesterday there were many accidents. It was scary at first, but it was okay. Then I met the other brothers of seeing Fatty is also a person who has experienced strong winds and waves. Although he is still a little scared, he can bear it. Qin-Chi nodded, it's okay. Sotingyu looked around at this time, but there was no sign of Wei Chu. Just as he was about to ask for the exit, he saw the ladder appearing at the exit of the stairs in the apartment. Little pig. This way, Sotingyu said with joy on his face and waved. Wei Chu came over and greeted four acquaintances one by one. The fat man looked confused. Little pig. Why are you here? Qin-Chi looked at Wei Chu, who was not a stranger, and fell into silence for a while. Sotingyu coughed lightly and briefly explained, Xiao Chu became a player last month, and Guju and I happened to meet him last night. That's really fate. The fat man, who had never thought about it deeply, accepted the fact that Wei Chu was also a player, and he welcomed the latter's arrival. It's not clear today whether we need to clock in. If we need to clock in, after the clock is finished, we will separate the teams into several locations to check the situation. After finishing his breakfast, Gucci took out a tissue and wiped the corners of his lips. Sutingyu looked at the breakfast that had been bought in advance on the table, picked up a glass of soy milk and a steamed bun without ceremony, and ate it while drinking. Okay, where should I go? The two locations, the city hall and the central hospital, are more important. Qin Chi and I will go to these two places respectively. You can follow whoever you want, as you like. As he spoke, Gucci glanced at the four of them lightly. Sutingyu immediately said, Kikai and I. Gucci was not surprised by Sutingyu's answer. He looked at Fatty and Wei Chu, waiting for their choice. Although Wei Chu passed the initial test by Sutingyu and Gucci last night, he was still in the dungeon and could not tolerate any negligence. In order to prevent Wei Chu from having ulterior motives, Gucci had already discussed this matter with Qin Chi before Sutingyu arrived, intending to have at least one of them keep an eye on it. As for the fat man, I can only say by the way. I'll follow the boss. Wei Chu hesitated, but decided to follow Gucci, who was more reliable, mainly because Sutingyu was with Qin Chi. I can do it. The fat man scratched his head. Fat man, how about you and Xiaozu Guju and the others go? Sutingyu suggested tentatively. The fat man smiled and had no objections. Yeah, that's fine. By the way, I haven't participated in a dungeon with Xiaozu yet. Dear Angel Su player, hello, your 10th journey point at Sivan Gate is, Water Corridor. Please arrive at the target site within 2 hours, thank you for your cooperation. Here we go, check in for the mission. After finishing breakfast, Sutingyu, like everyone else, was waiting for the check-in point to be refreshed. All the scene members present did not rush to leave first, but began to look for members who were at the same check-in point as themselves, so that they could check in together and have someone to look after them. Currently, the number of scene members in the apartment has exceeded 100, and some of them have different check-in points. Due to the distance problem, players who are together have a higher probability of checking in, but if there are too many people in a certain area, they will be adjusted appropriately, right? Sutingyu listened to each one who was different from his own. Check in, thinking to myself. Kikai, where is your check-in point? Sutingyu blinked her big eyes, hoping it would be the same as hers. The long corridor in the water, Qin Kitha said. Perhaps Sutingyu and the other 5 were the closest, and the check-in points were all refreshed to the water corridor. Before the investigation started, it would be okay for them to get together. It's time to go. Gucci summoned the rest of the gang members who were going to the water corridor. Yes, Master Ju. Even if they were divided into several groups to go to other check-in points, there were still 40 people going to the water promenade. Naturally, they couldn't all go together, so they were divided into groups according to the number of people in a car, and they didn't get together, so as not to attract attention. After getting on the bus, Sutingyu habitually checked the information of each check-in point. The water corridor, as the name suggests, is a corridor built in the water, which can pass vehicles and pedestrians, and has also been developed for tourism value. We're going into the water this time. Just in case, you all have these equipped. Sutingyu took out his extra water-avoiding beads and underwater breathing beads, and temporarily distributed them to the other 4 people. Remember to return them to me after the dungeon is over. Oh. No problem, boss. The fat man got used to it and accepted it with a smile. Wei Chu hesitated for a few seconds and then reached out to take it. Thank you, Sister Su. It's okay, it's just a small favor. Maybe I won't need it. Sutingyu didn't care. After everyone is successfully equipped, there is no need to worry about the underwater corridor. Anyway, as soon as you punch in and refresh, something unexpected will happen. Being in the water, small accidents are okay, but if you think about the big picture, it is probably that the corridor is unreliable and will leak. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the check-in achievement of Visit Here in the Water Corridor. Sutingyu's preparedness for rainy days really came into use. It turned out that the corridor was leaking. If a few people had run slower, they would have become drowned. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the check-in achievement of Visit Here in Ghost Valley. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the Visit Here achievement at Suwonmun University. Sutingyu and the others used the fastest speed to check in at the 3 places they needed to check in from morning to noon, leaving a lot of time. After several people went to find a place to eat first, they followed the original plan and went separately to the city government building and the central hospital. Sutingyu and Qin-Chi went to the central hospital. Sutingyu was still a little worried about the weird long-haired man she met last night. The central hospital was still some distance away, and Sutingyu also mentioned this matter to Qin-Chi. Well, Gucci told me that he went to the hospital this time to see if there were any patients with the same illness, Qin-Chi said. When the two arrived at the central hospital, they found that it was overcrowded. Damn, why are there so many troubles lately? Hey, I'm so annoyed. I can't even leave the house now. Sutingyu's head turned slightly and he understood. There were so many patients in this hospital all of a sudden. It is estimated that many of them were implicated by players checking in. With so many accidents, it is impossible that no one was injured, because even players, if they despise or disapprove, even in the dungeon this life will also be ruined in his own hands. Let's go, look for abnormal patients first, Qin-Chi said. These were all injured due to accidents, and some were wailing and screaming, which made Sutingyu feel a little embarrassed. Anti-theft, delayed content replacement. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 803. Sutingyu walked around and found that there was no patient with the same symptoms as last night. The long-haired man last night seemed to have gone crazy and lost his mind, but now, the patients seen in the hospital are in a normal mental state. Kikai, how about we register? Sutingyu turned to Qin-Chi beside him and said. There are some places in the hospital that ordinary people cannot enter. After registering and becoming a patient for medical treatment, it will be much easier to get in. Well, okay, Qin-Chi nodded. After registering and paying the fee, Sutingyu casually thought of a disease for the two of them that was not visible on the outside, and that would require surgery. After spending some scattered medical expenses, Sutingyu and the two finally got access to some free-for-all areas of the hospital. Go to the inpatient department and take a look. Sutingyu suggested. It's been a long time since the long-haired man was brought here last night. If he needed emergency treatment or something, he should have been sent to the inpatient unit by now. Some corridors in the hospital are blocked. If you want to get in or out, you can only take a detour or take the elevator. However, the elevator door at the bottom is guarded by hospital security guards. After entering the elevator, you cannot go to any floor. The buttons on some floors are even disabled, making it impossible to get there. When he first arrived at the hospital, although Sutingyu wanted to go to the forbidden areas, he still had to check other accessible areas first. Ding dong. The elevator door opened, and Sutingyu and the others walked out. Entering the patient ward area on this floor, the two began to look for the patient with the long-haired man like last night. Ahem. Are the family members of patient number 303 here? The faint smell of disinfectant was in the air. Although it was not pungent, Sutingyu could smell it wherever he went. The ward area is not as noisy as the registration and payment area below. Apart from the occasional conversations between patients and nurses, there are only some noises from moving equipment or unpacking medicines, and there are almost no sounds of footsteps. After searching this floor, no abnormalities were found. Sutingyu and the others went to another floor to continue searching. City Hall. Gucci stopped the car, unbuckled his seat belt, and said quietly to Fatty and Wei Chu in the back seat, "We're here, get out of the car." After the three of them got out of the car one after another, the fat man looked up at the tall buildings in front of him, feeling a little sore in his neck. The city government is so big, do we have to look at it layer by layer? No, let's go to two places first, the information center and the mayor's office. You go to the former one and I'll go to the latter one, Gucci arranged. The two of them had no objection. Okay boss. Gucci stared at the building in front of him for 2 seconds, then slowly looked away. This morning, Gucci asked the members who had been sentenced if they had punched in at the city hall, and the result was that more than 20 people, including Qin Chi, had punched in. Last night, he and Sutingyu also checked in. As usual, there will always be some accidents at the places you check in. But now when I come over and take a look, just looking at the surface of the building, it seems that everything is calm and there is nothing wrong with it. But the calmer it was, the more suspicious Gucci felt. Gucci, the information center is on the 17th floor, and the mayor's office is on the 22nd floor. Please stay in touch. If you need anything, call us. After giving the last instructions, the three of them entered the lobby on the first floor of the city government building. In the lobby, there are only one or two scattered staff members responsible for reception, consultation, and other matters. The three of them walked onto the elevator without stopping. On the 17th floor, Fatty and Wei Chu walked out of the elevator, while Gucci continued to take the elevator to the 22nd floor. But just when the elevator reached the 21st floor, it stopped and opened the door. Seeing this, Gu clicked and closed the door, then clicked 22 again. But within a few seconds, the elevator door closed and opened again. After trying twice, Gucci was sure of one thing. The elevator had been tampered with and could not go up to the 22nd floor. The 22nd floor is where the mayor's office is located, but the elevator is broken? Gucci had no choice but to walk out on the 21st floor. If there is no elevator, there are still corridors to walk on. The 21st floor is the mayor's secretary's office and part of the documentation area. After coming up, Gucci didn't see many people. Occasionally, a person passed by with a document, but he didn't even look at it. He walked in a hurry, as if he was busy with something important. When Gucci found the corridor, he found that the corridor was blocked by a pile of debris. There were even yellow lines and no passage warning signs erected. Gucci's expression moved slightly. He crossed the yellow line, avoided all kinds of debris, and walked into the corridor. All the way up, to the 22nd floor. At the same time, when Wei Chu and Fatty entered the 17th floor, they found that there were no more human beings inside. It was a mess and only the machines were operating autonomously. Where have all these people gone? Fatty looked at these machines that were operating normally, and several screens were switching between surveillance images of various accidents. Brother Feng, do you know how to use these machines? Wei Chu looked at these expensive and well-made machines and felt a little confused. He had never touched these things before. The fat man didn't dare to guarantee, "I'll try." Central Hospital. Kikai, you can't find anything even if you look for it in the open. I plan to look for it invisibly after wandering several floors but finding nothing. Sutingyu thought of some off-limits areas in the hospital and discussed it with Qin Chi. Sutingyu has an invisible hat and can go in invisible to investigate the situation. Qin Chi thought for a few seconds and nodded in agreement. Pay attention to safety. Okay. Sutingyu got into the nearby women's toilet, avoiding the surveillance and the crowd, put on the invisible hat, and then found a suitable opportunity to walk out of the toilet. "Kikai, I'm leaving." A very small voice came from Chin Chi's ear. He looked over subconsciously and did not see Sotingyu's figure. He just vaguely sensed that she was gone. Thinking of this, Chin Chi also left the place. There were still a lot of people in the hospital during the day. Sotingyu carefully avoided the dense crowds and walked towards the areas that were marked as closed. The hospital, the underground and the top floors are not accessible. Well, let's go to the underground first. Sotingyu couldn't take the elevator. Normal elevator entrances had security handles. Moreover, as soon as there were more people in the elevator and people pushing him around, his invisibility would be exposed. The smell of disinfectant is so strong. Sotingyu followed the stairs to the underground floor and smelled a very pungent smell of disinfectant. At this time, Sotingyu saw a man pushing a trolley in at the entrance. He was not wearing a white coat, so he was probably not a doctor. Sotingyu hesitated for a moment. He was not familiar with this place, so he decided to follow this person secretly. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 804. Chapter 804. The total number of words has reached 900,000, which, is a little short of the million words I expected. It's the first time I've persisted in writing for so long, and I'm very happy. Without your support, I definitely wouldn't have been able to persist for so long. Now, I am a little tired and feel stuck. Actually, I have also thought about whether to finish it. After all, the previous closed beta plot can be separated from the subsequent public beta plot. I am afraid that I will not be in a good state. The follow-up plot is too complicated to write. However, I decided to grit my teeth and continue writing because I really couldn't bear to part with it. Big Fish Kikai's relationship with each other bit by bit, Guju's heart knot and nightmare have not yet been solved, the entanglement of the previous generations of the Gu family, why Shan Daimei is short-lived and why she behaves indifferent to life, the naive fat man, the two-faced countryside, the baby Zaizu, Chibubi, who has been silently following Gujuyi's brother and friend, the members of the non-order. There are still many, many stories that have not been told. I really want to finish it to the originally planned number of words. If I finish it now, also a pity. Well, during New Year's Day, I want to take a day or two to rest and sort out my thoughts and the upcoming big plot. It may have to wait until the third day of New Year's Day to update normally. In addition to the New Year's Day bonus, the number of words is uncertain. As for who the protagonist is this time, I haven't thought about it yet. If it is confirmed in advance, maybe it will be earlier. Hair. Finally, let me tell you in advance. Happy New Year. 2021.12.31. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 805. Sotingyu followed the man. There were many rows of secret rooms on this underground floor. They were all locked and the conditions inside could not be seen. The further inside, the smell of disinfectant gets stronger. Sotingyu even vaguely smelled other strange smells. After walking for a while, Sotingyu couldn't help but rub his nose. At this time, Sotingyu saw the man opening a door with a key and hurried over. But when Sotingyu saw the scene inside, his eyes widened in surprise. There were all kinds of corpses placed inside, rows upon rows, neatly arranged. Is this a morgue? Commonly known as the morgue? Then it's no wonder that people have to wait for others to come in. Sotingyu wrinkled his nose. The smell of corpses and disinfectant in the air were mixed together. It smelled quite sour. Sotingyu continued to look inside. The man's cart was placed outside the door. Now he had gone in and was picking something among the corpses. The man pulled out a lump of black stuff, and upon closer inspection, he saw that it was a corpse with abnormally thick hair before death. Wait. Sotingyu looked startled. This is Why does it feel familiar? Suting, you remembered it? It's the long-haired man from last night? He actually died. And there are no family members to adopt the body? Suting frowned tightly. What's going on? He was obviously still lively last night, and even wanted to be hugged by the little fairy, although the little fairy sternly refused, but Suting remembered that he didn't put in much effort, so he wouldn't just beat people to death. Dear Angel Player, hello, your 13th journey point at Sivan Gate is, Central Hospital. Please arrive at the target site within 2 hours, thank you for your cooperation. While Suting was thinking hard, the panel popped out at an inappropriate time. Hey, are you checking in again? Suting turned around and was about to take a step, but stopped abruptly. Etc. Is the check-in point at the Central Hospital? Just as Suting's head turned around, the panel began to refresh its contents again. Congratulations to the player Angel for completing the visit here achievement at the Central Hospital. The 14th trip point is, Water Change Ion Paradise. Please arrive at the target site within 2 hours, thank you for your cooperation. Suting, surprised. Punch into refresh equals an accident is about to happen equals the hospital is unsafe. Suddenly, Suting had an ominous premonition in his heart. When Suting was about to run away, suddenly, a shrill scream rang out from the morgue. Ah! Suting paused and looked back instantly. Logically speaking, Suting should have escaped first. But there were corpses of people with long hair in the morgue. Suting's little heart was beating ping ping pong 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 pang bang, and there was always a voice tempting her, can't run, you have to eat melons, you have to eat melons. Ah bah bah bah. He is clearly facing the difficulties bravely. So, Suting saw the scene in the morgue. The long-haired man who seemed to have died before was now alive and kicking and pulling at the man. His black and long nails were grabbing the man's neck, and he was gnawing at him with his mouth open. It wasn't just the long-haired man, there were other movements in the pile of corpses. Several stiff arms stood up in a daze, peeling away the pressed corpses, and then each one had disheveled hair and long black nails. The corpses all came to life, regardless of their faces. Just looking at their appearance, Suting had every reason to suspect that these were the long-haired man's half-brothers. Damn! He's alive, Suting's eyes had already widened in surprise. This, what is this? Monster? Living corpse? Zombies? The living corpse that suddenly heard the sound immediately looked around alertly. When Suting saw this, he immediately shut up and restrained his breath. Although this thing looks scary, I don't know if it can withstand 2 sticks, forget it, it's better to do less than to do more. Suting watched helplessly as 1, 2, 3, living corpses all stood up. Some were scratching at the floor and walls, sniffing for something. Suting moved his steps and wanted to go out. Suddenly, the living corpse closest to Suting seemed to have discovered something, and rushed towards Suting's direction with super precision. Suffer it? Suting's eyes narrowed, knowing that he might be exposed, so he immediately took out the meteor stick. In an instant, the stick lengthened, and the living corpse that rushed towards him flew to the ceiling. Between the 2 options of escaping immediately or killing these living corpses first and then escaping, Suting hesitated for a second and chose the latter. If nothing else, it's only the 2nd day of the dungeon, so this dungeon can't be messed up yet. Thinking of this, Suting replaced the death blade with his backhand. As soon as the death blade came out, the evil aura of the blade shook. Suting looked at this group of living corpses who seemed to be afraid of nothing and began to look frightened. Solve it early, check in early. Suting muttered as he waved the death blade. Wherever the blade passed, the living corpses would be wiped out in ashes. The ashes were scattered. It took Suting a few minutes to finally clear away the living corpses that could move in this room. The man who was bitten by the living corpse is now unconscious, and the scratches and bites on his body are shocking. Sutingyu went to check his breathing and found that it was a little weak. He didn't know if he could survive. Sutingyu moved him to the entrance and exit of the basement so that someone could find him more easily, and then left the place. Less than a minute after Sutingyu left, bursts of scratching sounds slowly resounded from the unopened secret rooms in the basement. After leaving the basement, Sutingyu found a place where no one was around and released the invisibility effect. Sutingyu's face looked a little bad. She had just become invisible, but she could still be noticed by those living zombies. If her death blade was not of a high enough level and could restrain such living zombies, it would still be troublesome to escape. I'm going to find Kikai first. I don't know if his check-in points are the same. After leaving the hospital, Sutingyu went to the original parking place. When Tongguki split up, Sutingyu and Qin-Chi naturally needed a means of transportation. Kikai. Sutingyu immediately saw Qin-Chi waiting beside the car. How's it going? Seeing someone coming, Qin-Chi opened the passenger door and motioned for Sutingyu to go in. Is your check-in point the water Changjayun Paradise? Yes, Sutingyu nodded, then ducked into the car. Qin-Chi closed the passenger door, walked around half a circle, sat in the driver's seat, and started the car. The hospital check-in point has been refreshed. Did you encounter anything? Sutingyu nodded, yes. On this road, it's important to check in. Good. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 806. City Hall. The 22nd floor. Gucci looked at the exit close in front of him, and was only 2 or 3 steps away from walking in to find out. At this time, there was a sound of footsteps coming from the silent door. Da-da-da. Gucci subconsciously stopped, his eyes darkened for a moment, and he stared at the door. A long shadow was printed on the floor at the door, and then a fat Mediterranean man appeared in front of Gucci. Who are you? The voice was slightly sharp, and the eyes were somewhat scrutinizing and defensive. Gucci's expression paused, and in a short moment, he spoke in a calm tone. I made a private appointment with the mayor a few days ago, and I'm going to visit you today. Is the mayor here? Before I thought about it, I did some research and found out on the internet that the person in front of me was a secretary to the mayor named Deng Chengguen. Therefore, Gucci deliberately emphasized that the appointment was privately, so it was reasonable for him as a secretary not to know. Oh, it turns out he is the mayor's guest. Deng Chengguen turned his back to the window inside the door, with most of his face hidden in the shadows. Just listening to the tone of his voice, he seemed to be a little relaxed. But Gucci didn't know how much Deng Chengguen believed him. Deng Chengguen, I'm sorry, the mayor went on a business trip yesterday, and his return date is uncertain. In that case, don't bother me. I'll wait for the mayor to come back before coming over. Gucci looked calm and couldn't see anything wrong at all. After saying that, he turned around and prepared to leave. As soon as he turned around, Gucci could clearly feel the cold, snake-like gaze behind him. This gentleman. Suddenly, Deng Chengguen spoke. Gucci stopped, tilted his head and asked, do you want anything else? Deng Chengguen spoke slowly, and every word seemed to contain some kind of warning. In the near future, the mayor's office will be renovated, so if you have nothing to do, it's better not to come up. Gucci paused for 2 seconds, and then nodded along with Deng Chengguen's surface meaning, I understand. After agreeing, Gucci turned around and just walked a few steps downstairs when his own panel popped up. Dear He Player, hello, your 13th journey point at Sivan Gate is, the municipal government building. Please arrive at the target site within 2 hours, thank you for your cooperation. Gucci's figure stagnated slightly for a moment. Checked in? The city government building, didn't you check in? Can check-in points be repeated? Wrong. In an instant, Gucci vaguely realized that there was something wrong with the panel popping up at an inappropriate time, and at this moment, a chilling sense of crisis suddenly emerged behind him. Congratulations to the player for completing the check-in achievement of visit here in the City Hall. The 14th journey point is Wuyun Hotel. The panel was still publishing content steadily, but Gucci had no time to pay attention. In the midst of the lightning, Gucci quickened his pace and climbed over piles of debris. Run. You run? He. Behind him, an extremely cold and weird laughter sounded. Immediately afterwards, something seemed to break through the air. Something is approaching in mid-air. Gucci opened his fingertips slightly and turned his palm. In just a few seconds, a wall of transparent thin lines was built behind Gucci, blocking the foreign objects behind him. The sharp silk thread also cut those things into several pieces, making a sheeshy sound, and then fell into the pile of debris. Ah! Damn it! Gucci had already run down to the 21st floor, and Deng Qingguan's curses from upstairs seemed to have disappeared because of the arrival of another person. Boss! Boss, you're down. Gucci stood firm at the door of the corridor, glanced back, and still could only see a pile of debris. Deng Qingguan above his head could no longer see anyone, but his voice could still be heard. Gucci stepped out of the corridor and saw Fatty and Wei Chu walking quickly with solemn expressions. Seeing that Gucci was safe and sound, the two of them breathed a sigh of relief. Fatty, boss, the check-in point has been refreshed. Wei Chu took over, Brother Feng and I both belong to Wuyun Hotel. What about you, boss? Same. Gucci glanced at the two of them and saw that there seemed to be other people on this floor, and said, let's go down first. Oh, okay. The three of them took the elevator all the way back to the lobby on the first floor. Before Gucci walked out of the door, he glanced back at the staff at the front desk of the lobby. The phone in his hand rang, and he picked it up and answered. Secretary Deng, what did you say? What stopped? Gucci couldn't hear what happened after that. After he came out and reached a safe place, Gucci asked, what did you gain over there? Boss, we found that many staff members in this building are missing, and the number of people does not match up. Moreover, we also found that various accidents occurred at Sivan Gate not just yesterday, but the time has to be pushed back to a few days ago, but it did not start yesterday. So often? The fat man looked worried. Hearing this, the suspicions that had previously appeared in Gu's mind came back again. Go check in first. I have something I need to check in before I check with Sutingyu and the others. Gucci glanced at the time displayed on his phone, and then searched and navigated to Wuyun Hotel. Good. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the Visit Here achievement in the Water Change Iyun Paradise. Congratulations to the player Angel Su for completing the check-in achievement of Visit Here on Kyoyu Road. As night falls, the bustling Sivan Gate during the day is once again illuminated by lights of various colors, illuminating the bustling traffic. After running around outside for a day, Sutingyu and Qin Chi returned to the gathering point, ready to rest and have dinner. After waiting for a while, the other members of Xing also came back one after another, including Gucci and the other three. After coming back, they didn't talk nonsense. While eating, they talked about their experiences during the day and the information they found. I found a long-haired man in the basement of the hospital. He died at first, but then he suddenly came to life and bit a staff member of the hospital. Moreover, there was not only one long-haired man. Some of the patients in the hospital have been affected by accidents and have been admitted to the hospital, not just in the past 2 days. Brother Qin, I was just about to say this. We also checked here. The mayor may have had an accident. The mayor's secretary no longer looked like a normal person. he just had to check in at the time and didn't know the specific situation on the 22nd floor, so he didn't pursue him. Not only the information collected by the 5 Sutingyu, but also the other members of Seeing, if they find any abnormalities, there will also be dedicated people responsible for statistics and records, and finally report to Gucci. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 807. Sutingyu and others are currently in a room. All the unnecessary clutter in this room has been cleared away, leaving only tables and chairs as a temporary meeting place. Come and take a look. Gucci distributed the printing paper summarizing the information to Sutingyu and others. Sutingyu glanced at the lines, flipped through a few pages, and put the printing paper back on the table. Guju, when you went to the city government building during the day, did you check in at the same point? We just checked in there last night, and this time can I repeat it? When I met Deng Chengwen at the city hall and the clock-in panel appeared, I had a guess. Guju lowered his eyes and glanced at the printing paper on the desktop, recalling his experience at the city hall during the day. Just yesterday, we all thought that it was the player's check-in that caused the accident. It sounds like the same thing. After all, every time the player checked in, an accident happened. But if we reverse our thinking, could it be that some kind of unexpected event is about to happen at those check-in points themselves, and the panel system is just guiding players there? Sutingyu was shocked, and then began to think about it. According to what you said, it was inevitable that the long-haired man would resurrect and bite people when I was in the basement of the hospital during the day. Even if I wasn't there, it will also be triggered, and at that time the clock just happened to appear on the panel. It was because it detected that a biting accident would occur in the basement of the hospital nearest to me, so you just followed the trend and issued a clock to me. At first, Sutingyu thought that the unexpected incident was caused by the player checking in. Now, another possibility has emerged, that is, the panel system has detected in advance where an unexpected event is about to occur, and then guides the player there. One more thing. Gucci glanced deeply and said. The panel system stipulates the check-in time, urging players to rush to the location of the incident, and waits until the time period before and after the accident occurs before notifying the player that the check-in is successful, and the next check-in point will be refreshed. At this time, most players will conservatively choose the second option when they first arrive. Therefore, to a large extent, they ignore first. The fat man scratched his head. The truth? Is there any conspiracy behind the occurrence of these accidents? Qin Chi shook his head slightly. There are too many check-in points. It is impossible to judge for the time being. The only thing that can be determined is that this tourist water city is not peaceful secretly. The duration of this round of dungeons is 15 days, which means that players need to survive for 15 days. That means there must be some kind of disaster brewing that will endanger the lives of players. The reason for the large number of check-in points does not rule out the existence of interference items, Gucci said. Sutingyu patted the printing paper on the table. Then can we collect the check-in points of the past 2 days and deduce what kind of disaster will happen at Sivan Gate? Then prevent it in advance, or kill it in the cradle. It's a good idea. Gu took his hands off the table and leaned back against the chair. Through the two events of the resurrection of corpses in the hospital and the unknown method of the city government secretary, my judgment is that the worldview of this round of dungeons is not very ordinary. That's right, like our real world, it's ordinary, and no one comes back to life after death. The fat man rubbed his arms, feeling a little chilly. Ahem, well, yes. The ordinary. Sutingyu agreed on the face, but murmured in her heart, ordinary people don't know and think the world is normal. Maybe it was deliberately concealed? Etc. Hide. Sutingyu immediately lost his composure. Is it possible that some of the ulterior secrets in the dungeon world have been deliberately concealed? Sutingyu said to a few people after considering his words. The more he talked, the more guilty Sutingyu felt. However, Sutingyu hit it very well and few people noticed anything strange. It's possible Gucci took out his mobile phone in the dungeon and threw it on the table. In the past 2 days, all our methods of obtaining information about the dungeon world came from the internet. If the truth behind this dungeon world is someone has concealed something, and it is impossible for ordinary people to leak these things through the internet. By the way, speaking of this. Upon hearing this, Fatty quickly took out a USB flash drive from his pocket and placed it on the desktop. This is the information resource that Xiaozu and I downloaded from the city government's information center. No, does knowing this help? Sutingyu patted the table and said with bright eyes, and this one? Let's take a look quickly. Gucci stood up, turned around and went out to find a member of Kixing. Within a moment, he brought a brand new laptop. Seeing this, the fat man quickly handed the USB flash drive to Gucci. Gucci turned on the computer, inserted the USB flash drive, and spoke quietly while keeping his eyes on the computer screen. There should be a battle mode tonight. The other people in scene have also found some treasures. Sutingyu, I'll give it to you to take first. Sutingyu responded, okay. It's a piece of cake anyway, but this matter must be kept secret. Although Sutingyu knew that Gucci was rigorous in his work, for the sake of his own life, he muttered one more sentence. A prop that can evade detection by the panel system. If this secret is leaked to outsiders, it will be Barbecue Angel Sue will become completely famous. Even the previous wanted order is nothing. Any player who has some entanglement with interests has been wanted by others, such as Gucci, but no one dares to touch Gucci openly. I know Gucci revealed what he had planned. I will reveal it to verify and trigger a hidden plot, and the treasure is in my hands. Okay, Sutingyu was completely relieved. Gucci looked at Wei Chu, who was standing aside, and said, you are responsible for collecting all the treasures first and then handing them over to Sutingyu. Be careful not to be seen. Huh? Me? Now, Wei Chu, who was suddenly given a task, hesitated for a moment. Logically speaking, he was a new player who joined the alliance. From the beginning, he would have no access to such confidential meetings, let alone perform such important tasks. Yes, now Gucci frowned slightly, staring at the computer screen with a cold expression. Gucci was really not used to Chibubi's absence. As for why it was left to Wei Chu, firstly, it was to test, and if there were no bad intentions, it would allow him to better integrate into the punishment. Secondly, Gucci wanted to drive away the person. Okay, boss, I'll do it now. Hearing this, Wei Chu had no choice but to follow the instructions. Gucci nodded slightly, well, go ahead. I've already informed the other members of Seeing. After Wei Chu left, Gucci motioned to the fat man to guard the door, and then turned the computer screen to Sutingyu and Qinchi.